88.7 FM Chicago, WLUW Radio, independent community radio, another exciting edition of Words and Music. Going to be an interesting edition of Words and Music because our guest this morning is not necessarily a musical guy. Ladies and gentlemen, Tommy Davidson, welcome.
That all depends. That all depends what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm musical too now. I consider myself an entertainer, so that means all aspects of entertainment.
Well, I've seen some of the music that you've done in your stand-up show. In Philly, you did that.
Right.
But then it never really progressed to the point of like your friend Jamie Foxx,
right,
where he was able to do records and stuff.
Well, you know what? It will want to when the time is right. That's not something that I want to do prematurely. I just want to, it's always been a career plan. It'll be the move when the time comes, and I'm looking forward to it.
Doing research, whatever little research I did do in order to meet you, I found a videotape from like 1991, and it was one of the Fox Living Color things. It was a Christmas special, and it was interesting because you were sitting across the room from a little kid he did a little Spike Lee get-up, and you guys were talking about Spike Lee and stuff. And now all of a sudden, 10 years later, you're actually in a Spike Lee joint. That's a little strange.
Actually, that is, it's a little ironic, really, because I always wanted to work with him. We did several sketches about him. I played him. And when we first met, I don't think he liked the show. And, as time went on, we hooked up, and I did this Bamboozle with him, and I guess things happen in their time.
I'm going to tell you an interesting story about Bamboozled. Me and my lady friend went out to see Bamboozled. We called the theater. We said, we want to see this movie. Is it playing? They told us what time it was playing. We get there. Turns out to be Bedazzled, not Bamboozled. So rather than seeing Bedazzled, we saw this movie with Richard Gere where he's this lady doctor, and after I woke up, I realized that I hadn't seen Bamboozled, so I still haven't seen it, but I've read about it. Tell us a little bit about it, because it's still out there.
Well, Bamboozled is a film about a television producer who is having a problem getting a black show of integrity on the network. So what he does is, to try to get fired, he puts the most stereotypical racist show that you can ever imagine on the air. He takes an old turn of the century minstrel show, which were the shows that were done in black faces with entertainers, black entertainers. Started out with, and then whites like Al Jolson bit the move and had whole careers to try to upset the network, but the network loved the show and put the show on the air, and it became the national craze, blackface, and the stereotypes became crazes. And of course, when you mess around with hate and you mess around with racism, you get bamboozled, and by the end of that movie, it was not a positive experience.
I was going to say, at some point in some of the reviews, they thought that maybe it was overdone, that maybe it could have been downtoned a little bit, and then the message would have got across. Or you look at Roger Ebert's review, and he's kind of like, well, they maybe overdid it, and maybe the message was lost. How do you feel about that?
I think he's the same one that said the piano was good. So it's like, it's hard to go off of what a critic says. I think Spike has his own style of making movies, and either it hits or it doesn't hit. And I was in the movie, and I love the movie. And what it has to say about the industry, and what it has to say about America, what it has to say about black folks, it's one of the best pieces of work I've seen.
How true to life for some of the experiences that were portrayed in that movie. I'll think back again 10 years ago to when In Living Color came out, and some people thought that this was the most shocking thing they had seen on TV, and the only reason that you guys were getting away with it were basically because you guys were black.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I think that we were basically able to get away with it because it was just the right time, and we were funny as hell. And Saturday Night Live got away with a whole lot worse than we did. And also, it just... I forgot your other question.
Well, I was going to say, well, I guess I say that because in some ways people will say if they were white comics doing the same material, that it would be controversial. But it's black comics doing the material.
Well, it's just like I wouldn't try to be Jackie Mason. I wouldn't go up and try to do a whole lot of jokes about the Jewish culture because I'm not Jewish. It's funny how the white society and the white entertainment, the entertainment industry, looks at the black voice, and as if there's a monopoly on culture when they want to express it. But when we express it, it somehow has to be controlled, if that makes any sense at all. So, I just think that we can talk about what we need to talk about. Jews can talk about what they need to talk about. Latins can talk about what they need to talk about. You know, if Paul Rodriguez wants to talk about how many roaches that he had when he was living over in the barrio, then that's a cool thing to do because he's one of them. You know, but if Seinfeld goes and says, hey, man, look at all those roaches that they have over in the barrio, it's not funny. You got to be a part of, you know. I mean, now that I think of it, that's how it works, I think.
At the risk of sounding a bit controversial, at that time, the Fox network was noted for catering somewhat to the urban audience. Things have changed a little bit at the Fox network, and now you've got UPN that's kind of doing the same thing, but now they are in trouble. So what is it? What's the formula that people have to focus on in order to make these shows succeed?
Well, I think it's more of a business strategy of the networks, of the upstart networks. The upstart networks basically do what corporate, you know, what it's just imitating the corporate structure. It's like start out with the urban shows to build up your watchmanship. You know, we know how hard they work, we know how funny they are, and they'll help us build up the network. And then when the network gets to size, then we drop those shows and we get white shows.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention that because at one point, you're right, they built up the audience. John Leguizamo had a show on Fox at about the same time. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, that disappeared. And it's a little irritating to watch people bust themselves for shows that do well, and then seemingly at the peak, the bottom falls out.
Yeah, well, that's the part of TV. I mean, that's part of how it works. And that can be, and it objectively, that can actually go for a good show. You know, like Damon created a show called Hope Street, and it did not go, you know, and the ratings weren't there, the networks pulled the show. A lot of times they'll flip-flop a show's time slot, and the show will be gone. So it's really, really tough. The part that is imbalanced is that the networks have a tendency to stick with a white show longer than they would a black show.
Let's talk about your beginnings. If your bio serves me correctly, your beginnings actually was impromptu at a strip club?
Yeah. A friend of mine called me, ran down there, got on stage, tried it, it worked. Been doing it since that night.
And now we're at Zanies, and you're here this weekend in Chicago.
Real simple.
And also at Vernon Hills. When you look at a film like Kings of Comedy, it's a huge, basically a giant theater filled with people watching comedy. You're kind of back at the grassroots Zanies where maybe 150 people can fit in here. So you've got a small auditorium now as opposed to a big giant theater. It's kind of like going back to your roots after all these years.
Actually, it's not, because I've never changed my fundamental strategy as far as the entertainer that I am. You know, I love to perform, so this could be here, this could be at the Halloween parade with millions, this could be at the Super Bowl, this could be at the Kennedy Center with everybody with tuxedos on, this could be at the community center. You know, I'm just committed to being a performer and to touching lives. I mean, I'm lucky enough to be doing this in the first place. So I can do small clubs, I can do big arenas, I can do film, I can do TV. This is just, all this does is just add to what I do. I'm like the Jordan of this game.
Well, that's a refreshing change of pace, because there are those, and I don't, you know, you may know them, you may not know them, that at a certain point they don't want to do the little venues anymore. They want to just do the big auditoriums and make all the money. You don't mind coming back to Chicago to do Zanies. Didn't have to be the United Center.
Well, I would work in Chicago, out in Schaumburg, and out in Vernon Hills, and even over at the, what's the theater over there where all the black shows are?
Not the Apollo, the Regal.
The Regal Theater. Also the what's the black club, comedy club that's here?
It's on South Wabash. All Jokes Aside, I think it's called.
All Jokes Aside. And either I do an all-black show, you know, over there, or I do a semi-mixed show out in Vernon Hills or out in Schaumburg. But I never did a show right in Chicago, which I feel is basically my central audience, which includes Spanish, black, white, Filipino, East Indian. I mean, and I don't feel like I can get everybody unless I'm centrally in the city. And so I'm walking down the street, and I always stay in Chicago, and I always have people asking me, man, you're always in Chicago, but you're never in Chicago. You know, so I tried to get in this club, you know, for a while, and they didn't want to do the show here.
Well, why would they not want to book Tommy Davidson here in the city, or at least here at Zany's?
I discovered that it was a business thing, and I won't go into detail, but I'm finally here.
Because we've watched you on TV, we've watched your stand-up, we've watched your movies, and I've constantly been on the lookout for your name because I am a big fan of yours. Matter of fact, my son's 14; he's a big fan of yours. One of the first things that he started repeating once we got cable, you did a stand-up routine once, and you're like Frosted Lucky Charms, and then there's a little line there.
Ass to pieces.
Well, it's cute when you're saying it.
Right.
It may be cute when I'm saying it. Little Anthony at the time must have been 7, 8 years old, and he's repeating the new Lucky Charms song. But your material, in most cases, can cross all walks of life. You're not such the blue comedian.
No, I think I pretty much am pretty balanced. I mean, I could go, like I said, I can go all ways. You know, if I wanted to, I can go true blue. I'm not a blue comedian anyway. That's just not who I am. But I'm an adult, so I can express myself in an adult way. But I can also express myself in a very crossover, very sophisticated way. It depends on the audience.
So now that you're here in Chicago for the first time, literally downtown Chicago, how's the audience reacting to you?
They suck. No, I'm kidding. No, I went through all this and they suck. No, they're reacting just like I like them to react, and just like my audiences react. And the show and the response was just like I predicted. Everybody you can imagine: Latin, Asian, East Indian, Black, white, poor, rich. I mean, that's basically what I really am proud of.
Now, we're in between shows now. You'll be going on in just a little while. I'm curious as to how you kind of set the mindset to go hit the stage, and all of a sudden you're starting to make jokes and tell stories in the hopes that things are going to work. What do you go through?
Well, I'm sort of like the trapeze artist, you know. Trapeze artist stands on that platform and he just relaxed and just, you know, he just does his thing and he says to the audience, you know, hey, this and that and la-da-da. But once that daggone swing comes to him, wham, he's gone. So that's my whole philosophy. It's like I just take it easy. But, man, once I get on that, he flip, and do my thing, and then he lands on the other side and he goes, you know, and it's over, you know. And that's basically how I consider my performance.
Then you come here to the green room, you come up the stairs, and you're like the most relaxed guy there is. You're on stage, you're a maniac.
Hey man, I'm on the side right now. I ain't got the swing yet.
Not only are we airing this for the we got dancing, words and music thing, we're also talking to club kids on the radio on Saturday afternoon. This will air. Some of them may be curious about some of the experiences that you have, some of the highlights, because you work with a lot of people.
Ah man, I just can keep going. I mean, Shaq doing his thing. He's got a thing he does every year with the kids. That I have a lot of professional football and basketball players who are really good friends of mine.
Talking to Tommy Davidson, we're in the somewhat green room.
Who just was riffing for about 10 minutes.
Of Zany's.
You guys missed that.
And we were talking about some of those that you had worked with and some of your experiences.
I cannot tell you just so many things. Like I met John Thompson the other night. You know, I like moments that just, I did that Halloween parade in New York. That was incredible. I went to Europe. I went to Guam. I mean, what I do has exposed me to so much. I cannot believe it. I got in the Oscar Mayer Wiener car.
Yeah, that's based here in the city too.
That's crazy. You know what I mean? Like stuff that I never thought, you know what I mean? I drove the Goodyear blimp. I drove the Goodyear blimp by myself, yo.
And they let you do this.
Dude got out of the cockpit and said, go ahead, man. Drive the Goodyear blimp. And I drove the Goodyear blimp, man. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Like stuff I never imagined. I met Batman.
Adam West.
I met Adam West, yeah, the other night at the Halloween parade. He was there. And I was like, yo. I met Batman, Susan Sarandon. I mean, I cannot tell you. Hung out with DMX in Canada. Saw Jay-Z in New York. Went to his show. Been good friends with Puffy. And he, from years ago.
This was before all the controversy.
Years ago when he used to put tapes. He'd take CDs around to people. He was just a runner. And now he's like huge. And Puffy sees me. And it's like, hey, there it is, man. There go my man Tom. I mean, he never forgot. Even with Jordan, I flew here, and Jordan had his annual fundraising thing that he does. I flew here, and his dad had passed away, and I was in my bed one morning. I was like, damn, I wish there was something that I can do. You know, I wish there was something that I can do. And like in a couple of days after that, his family called me and said, we want you to fly to this foundation with us to perform with me and Anita Baker. So I flew here, and lo and behold, I'm like at the dinner table with just him, his mom, and his sister. Like, that's who I ate dinner with. It was crazy. I mean, it's like, you know, this has opened up the door for check this out. I wanted to go to, before I got out of high school, I was really good at ceramics. I used to do pots and sculptures and stuff like that. So I wanted to go to SMU, Southern Methodist University, to go to art school, right? So that went by the wayside, whatever. And I never got to go. But this year, I went to SMU to perform. And I was talking to some of the students, and they were in the art department, so they took me over there. They took me down to the ceramics class. Like, stuff like that.
They didn't give you an honorary degree in ceramics, did they?
No, they didn't give me no damn honorary degree. But just to have that, I mean, it was just like, stuff like that happens, or it has been happening, and I feel really blessed because those are the really important things. Share, dude, share. The other day I did a show called Style Challenge, which is a show that's going to come on cable, and Daisy Fuentes was on the show, and Cher was producing the show. And so, you know, of course I want to meet Cher, you know what I mean? So she comes to the show, and I say, hey, Cher, Tommy, you know. She said, boy, I know, and we talk, you know, and I got to tell her about how her show, when I was a kid, how I used to watch it, and she wanted me to do a great job on the show, and we connected on that level. You know who else? From Fleetwood Mac.
Stevie Nicks.
Stevie Nicks. My friend had invited me to see Stevie Nicks before she went out on concert, right? And I was there in the audience, and after the show, I went to my friend and I said, I want to meet Stevie Nicks. He was like, all right, come on, man. I walked back there. She was like, Tommy, Davidson, oh my God. It was like one of those things, and she was like, you do not know. You have helped me lose weight. You have helped me this. You have helped me that. And we talked. And I mean, it was like one of them things, and I called her. I was trying to do the jazz festival in Sacramento, and I was very, very close to having my own band and my own stuff. And I called her and I said, would you like to sit in? And she said, I can't because I'm at another date. But she said, if something else comes up, you call me. You know, I'm talking about, you know, Sugar Ray Leonard, meeting him, being friends with him. I mean, it's just my adventures in this have been so vast that sometimes, unless I talk about them, I don't realize the non-material gifts that I get out of this. Mark Anthony, dude, I went to the Mark Anthony concert, and I was like, you know, I love Mark Anthony. So I go in the backstage to meet Mark Anthony, and Mark Anthony's like, yo, man, what's up? And we got in this long conversation, me and Mark Anthony, and I'm like, man, this is the bomb.
How about some of the subliminal stuff when people will tell you that they've seen you and you've impacted them to do things? I mean, you're in your mid-30s now. At what point did you decide you literally wanted to do this besides that one impromptu thing you did?
In my early 20s is when I decided.
And what was the reaction of those who surrounded you?
They loved it. It was like right on time. It was like one of those things.
And things have always kind of went smooth with you? There were no bumps in the road or something that kind of said, you know what, maybe this is the decision that maybe I shouldn't have made?
No, there's always bumps in the road. They're constant, you know, because it's a personal challenge doing this, you know. But I always just have to rise to the occasion and just know that, you know, God's leading me through this. And that's what this is all about, man. That's what this is all about, loving myself, giving to others. You know, and as a result of it, I get to make a living, you know, and I don't do shabby, you know. I do okay.
You're the reason we couldn't find parking, I would imagine. Big limo out front.
You know how I roll. That's how it is, you know what I'm saying?
For those of us who are not familiar with your routines and the things that you do as a stand-up, how would you describe the material that you do?
Versatile, unpredictable, and pungent. Pungent.
Which makes it kind of topical.
Yeah, well, it's topical. It's you know, it's a little bit of everything. I think I'm the perfect balance.
So there's this class clown sitting in the classroom right now. Teacher's hoping he shuts up. The kids are hoping that he continues with it. What's your advice to those who have this gift and may want to exploit it a little bit?
Just as long as they can concentrate on class and do what they're supposed to be doing in school, they can do whatever they want to do. I don't think that a child's spontaneity and creativity should be stifled because of that. But as long as they have the ability to focus, or learn the ability to focus, they'll be fine, because that's the primary and fundamental ability that I've acquired over the years that has made the total difference in my career.
If you hadn't succeeded with what you're doing now, what do you think you'd be doing?
Hopefully, probably I'd have been a chef, because I was about to go to culinary school. So hopefully I'd have been a chef.
Tell us about some of the things that are coming up now. Bamboozled is out, obviously. There are movies that pop up every now and then on TV. Anything in the near future that we should know about?
Well, Bamboozled will be out. Santa Who is a Christmas movie that I did that'll be out on ABC with Leslie Nielsen. Christmas movie of the week. The first black elf ever, dude. I'm telling you, I was the bomb. Max the elf, yo. You ain't never seen no black elf, I'm telling you. And a movie called Chihuahua Man, and that'll be out probably next summer, and that's with Vivica Fox and Kim Wayans and Miguel Nunez.
You've just worked with everybody in the Wayans family. They're just like 18 of them, aren't there?
19. They're really cool people, and I've had the pleasure of meeting. I've had the pleasure of working with them. I've had the pleasure of working with Jada Pinkett Smith. I've had the pleasure of a relationship with her and Will Smith, and the people that I know. Irving Magic Johnson, the people that I know, I feel very, very fortunate to know. But there's people that I know that no one knows that I feel even more fortunate to know.
Well, that's pretty neat. I mean, we're gonna let you go in a minute so you can get to work and do and do your Zanies performance. But how about the young people? Some people say that there's a little bit of trouble coming their way because of all the things that they're dealing with, the teen pregnancies and the drugs and all of that. When you go to schools, when you talk to young people, when they are trying to follow in your footsteps and become successful, what type of things do you tell them?
Tell them to not take no for an answer. Really listen to people that are older than them. Because although you think you might know, you don't know. And the main thing I do is I share my experience with them. I share my experience with them from when I was their age. I share my experience with them from when I was their age. It's different saying, hey, now you should this and you should that, because you done already learned the damn lessons. But if I can get there and I can tell them the key lessons that I learned while I was that age that changed me, they have more of a tendency to connect with that. And so that makes it better.
Well, at that point, I want to thank you for sitting in with us again, something obviously you didn't have to do because you could have been just kind of relaxing. And I do appreciate the fact.
You want to go near these dirty couches?
Yeah, but this is kind of the life in terms of Zanies. When you look at the walls, everybody that has been here has ended up somewhere, including our friend Patty Vasquez, who you're working with her for a change.
Yeah, she's on a hubby.
Well, she's one of the Chicago comics, so I mean, there aren't too many of us anymore, but there are some of us out there from the city.
Oh yeah, Chicago got it going on. I love Chicago.
Ladies and gentlemen, words and music with Tommy Davidson. Thanks again.
You got it.